Hello and welcome back to Layla's Writing Lab. My name is Layla. In this post, what I've done is I have written the post and I'm going to publish it on my blog, but at the same time I have decided to record my voice in order to be able to give a little bit more explanation as well, because I've used some advanced vocabulary, grammar and linking words, and I want to explain this for students who might find it a little bit difficult to understand. So in the previous post, you learned how to write the introduction to an opinion essay. In this post, you will learn how to write your first body paragraph, how to incorporate advanced vocabulary, complex grammar, and link your ideas effectively. And each of these are very important in order to get a high band score. Let's remind ourselves what the question was. The question: the most effective way to learn English is to live in an English-speaking country. To what extent do you agree? That's our question. Now, in the previous post, in the introduction, I made reference, I mentioned two main points that I was going to talk about. So in body paragraph 1, I'm going to talk about one of those points, and that is willingness to socialize. For anybody who has forgotten, please feel free to go to my blog and check the IELTS Writing Task 2 Opinion Essay Introduction. You can remind yourselves there. So point number 1 I want to write about in my first body paragraph is willingness to socialize, and that means the willingness, how much somebody is prepared to work hard, or how much somebody really wants to learn to socialize if they're living in an English-speaking country in order to be able to learn the language. Remember, the structure for a body paragraph in an opinion essay is 3 sentences. We start with a topic sentence, which is a general statement of what it is you're going to talk about. Then you need to expand and you need to give reasons and explanations of what you talked about in your topic sentence. And finally, we give examples to support our main idea. So, I'm going to scroll down so we can take a closer look. If the topic of this paragraph is going to be about willingness to socialize, then you need to start with a general statement, which is what we talked about here, a topic statement. You also need to begin the paragraph with an appropriate transition word to show your examiner that you have started your body paragraph. Okay, so these are the things we need to remember in our first sentence. So here I have written down my first body paragraph. As you can see, I've got my topic sentence, I have expanded and given explanations and reasons, and finally I've given examples. Where you see red, that is where I have used transition words. Everywhere you see green, I'm going to talk about the grammar. And wherever you see purple, that is advanced vocabulary that I have used, and I'm going to explain this. Topic sentence. So remember, we're going to be talking about willingness to socialize and how this can help somebody to learn English in an English-speaking country. When it comes to learning a language, the impact that socializing can have on one's progress can be very beneficial. So I've started my sentence with a transition word. If you want to add something different, you can say regarding, or you can use a different transition word there just to start and introduce your main idea. When we have when it comes to, although we have to, the next word, if it's going to be a verb, it has got to be a gerund. You have got to use the ing form. So when it comes to learning a language, the impact or the effect that socializing can have on one's progress. Instead of saying an individual or a person or a man or woman, I've written down the word one. Now, I've used this in my introduction as well. It's very academic if you want to use this. On one's progress can be very beneficial. This is my general statement. So in this sentence, all I've said is that when it comes to learning a language, if you can socialize with other people, that will really help you to learn the language better. Now, why have I said that? I need to expand and give explanations. In other words, that means I'm repeating my topic sentence, but I'm going to say it in a different way with added explanation. In other words, the willingness to partake in social activities can lay the foundation for learning the English language in a proper manner. What does this mean? In other words, willingness to partake in social activities. Partake is a word instead of using take part. Instead of saying take part or participate, I've used a more academic word, which is partake. The willingness, wanting to participate in social activities can lay the foundation. That means it can create the first step or the foundation for learning the English language in a very effective way. Manner, method, way, all of them have the same meaning. If you remember in my introduction, I used the word method, and so here I'm going to use a different synonym called manner. In other words, the willingness to partake in social activities can lay the foundation for learning the English language in a proper manner. So if you socialize in activities, you can learn English much better than not socializing with the people. So now I need to give examples. For instance, as soon as I say for instance, my examiner knows straight away that here I'm going to give an example. For instance, should an individual put aside any reservations and show true motivation, then he or she can expect to achieve great fluency in their method of communication. Now here I've used advanced vocabulary. I've also used complex grammar. Now, I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with conditionals. First conditional, second conditional, third conditional, and obviously the zero conditional. This is where we use if in a sentence. Instead of using the word if, I've used a modal verb, should. And we cannot use any other modal verb in this conditional. This is the first conditional that I'm using. Instead of using if, I can use should. Should an individual, that means if an individual, put aside, because I've used should, I do not need the S. Should an individual put aside, that means forget, put it away, don't worry about it. Should an individual put aside any reservations? Here, I don't mean reservations for a restaurant. I mean being nervous and being shy about communicating with people. That's called reservation. If you have reservations at an interview, for example, it means you're very shy and you can't speak properly. If you have reservations when you're socializing, it means that you're too quiet, you're very worried about what people think of you, so you don't speak. That's what we mean here by reservations. It's a very good word to use in your vocabulary. Should an individual put aside, put away and forget being shy, any reservations, and show true motivation. Motivation is when you really want to do something. If they are really prepared to work hard, then the result will be, then he or she can expect to achieve great fluency, speak very clearly, very fast, very well in their method of communication. So that's one example I've given. Adding to this, so now the examiner knows I'm giving a second example. Adding to this, socializing with the locals, that means people who live in that country. So we're talking about English speaking people. Before we talked about natives in the introduction, here I'm talking about locals. They both have the same meaning. I'm just using synonyms. Adding to this, socializing with the locals can enlighten an individual. Enlighten, it means give you new information or teach you something. Can enlighten an individual on matters of culture and expectations. So what this sentence means, that if you socialize with people who live in England, they can teach you about the culture and the expectations of England, as well as the vocabulary and grammar used in putting sentences together. So when you socialize with people in that country, not only do you learn about the vocabulary and the grammar, but also speaking to people in that country enlightens you, it teaches you about the culture and the expectations of that country. And so these two are my two examples for why I think that socializing and specifically willingness to partake in social activities all can have a very good impact on learning the English language if you live in an English speaking country. I hope that you have found this post useful. Please feel free to visit me on my Facebook page at Layla's Writing Lab and either post a comment or a question. Thank you very much.